Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a smug Karen attacks a drill sergeant's disabled daughter at a store and tells us we are faking disability. We taught this entitled woman an important lesson. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. The title story starts like this. Messing with me is not something that I recommend. Messing with my daughter though, now that's something that could get me angrier than I've ever been. I work as a drill sergeant, and as most people know, most of that job is yelling and getting in people's faces. With my family though, I don't act like that at all, and people are surprised when they find out that I never raise my voice in the home. Just because I'm in the military does not mean that my family is, and my wife deserves just as much respect. I would also never yell at my daughter unless she was to do something potentially life-threatening. One thing that I do for my family is that I'm the one that goes grocery shopping. They sacrifice plenty for me, and I want to make sure that I'm at least doing one thing on a consistent basis for them. My daughter loves going with me, and I love having her there more than anything else in the world. When I have time off, I want to spend as much time with her and my wife as possible. One thing to know about my daughter is that she is disabled and in a wheelchair. Other than that, she is a fairly normal 12-year-old except for the hospital visits and her having more fragile bones than others. Sorry for all the background, but I just wanted to give you an idea before you hear about how angry I got at a Karen that I came across on one of my grocery trips with my daughter. It was a busy day, but we were lucky enough that there was one last handicapped spot in the parking lot. I got out of the car and was going to get our bags together and a cart before I took down the ramp to let my daughter come out. When I went out of my car though, I was face to face with a woman that looked just like how people describe a Karen on the internet, so I will call her exactly that. Karen: I was about to park in that spot. Me: there was no car signaling for it when I pulled in. Karen: I was a few rows down, but I saw it first. It is the only spot left and you are being selfish by taking it. That's a handicapped space, buddy, and you don't look disabled to me, so you better pull out and give me the spot. Me: your car does not even have a pass to park here. I will let you know that people like you… She cut me off. Karen: you don't have a pass either, and I hope you rot in hell. She speeds off before I can say anything else, and I assume it is done. We do have a pass, but with the van it is not easy to see from the back. I brush the crazy lady off and go inside to shop with my daughter, who thankfully was listening to music and not paying attention to what happened. Everything was going pretty normal until about 20 minutes later when I went down an aisle and saw Karen yet again. She gave me a look that I swear I could take and use on new recruits to scare the hell out of them. My daughter was next to me now though, so I was thinking she would notice that we were in a valid spot and scurry away. Instead, she walked past me out of the aisle fully. That was when I heard my daughter scream and saw that she was pushed out of her wheelchair by Karen and was now lying on the ground in pain. A push might not seem like much to most people, but for my daughter even that could be painful and result in a broken bone. If I was in a cartoon, I would have steam coming out of my ears at that point. Other people around us stopped and either stared or quickly left. I think one of them got a manager, which was the only thing that eventually stopped me from pushing her down and seeing how she liked it. I started yelling at her in my drill sergeant voice. Me: what the hell do you think you're doing? That's my daughter, and you pushed her out of the wheelchair. I should push you until you feel the pain that she's experiencing right now. Tell me one good reason you had to hurt my 12-year-old daughter. Come on, right now, say it. Karen: wow, great to see how mad somebody gets when their scam is exposed. It is clear she did not need the wheelchair and you were just using it to get the good parking. You can tell her to get off the ground and stop faking because nobody is buying it. She barely fell and she's putting on all these dramatics because daddy probably will yell at her otherwise. That was when the manager stepped in and told us that he had called the police and an ambulance. Karen was smug and thought that she was going to get me arrested for illegal parking. I had to cool off because I knew no matter what a man my size yelling like that at a woman would not be seen in my favor. Once the police got there, she right away started telling the story of how she saw that we parked in the spot and even claimed that she saw my daughter walk out of the car and get into the wheelchair for this plan. even saying that she can tell by the way I yell that I must be horribly abusive to my young daughter. She did not even deny pushing my daughter out of the chair and onto the floor. I calmly told the police that I yelled like that because I was a drill sergeant and scared because my daughter screamed and was on the floor in pain. She was still there because I knew from experience that if she broke something, me moving her could make it worse. The EMTs asked me questions about her, and I think that was when Karen finally realized that we were not making things up. She tried to say that she was willing to drop the whole thing and not press charges on me for yelling at her and my illegal parking. Yeah, she was still so focused on that. I was not one to let her get away with anything though, and told the police that I wanted her charged for assault and the store's videotape of what happened as my evidence. She was gonna learn the hard way that getting yelled at by me was not the worst thing that was gonna happen. I was way more concerned with my daughter than seeing her get handcuffed, so we were out of there and went to the hospital. I was right, and it turned out that my daughter broke a bone in her arm from the push. This meant that the assault charge against Karen was gonna be much worse. Assaulting somebody and breaking their arm is gonna look bad to any judge in a court of law. When the assault was done to a disabled 12-year-old girl though, there is nothing she could have said in order to get herself out of that. Her stories of her faking it and me trying to pull a scam would not work, so she ended up getting sentenced to a year in jail and then 5 years probation. That was the only time that I've ever had to use that kind of voice in public, and I hope I never have to again. I like to keep that part of me separate from my family, and I don't want my daughter to have to hear her dad yell and get scared of me. Any parent knows though that once they see their kid get hurt, they are gonna do everything in their power at the moment. For me, that was getting right up into Karen's face and giving her a taste of what a drill sergeant can do. For those wondering, my daughter healed fine and bounced back pretty quickly from the experience. A couple weeks later, she wanted to come to the grocery store with me again. I want to just end this by saying that I'm extremely proud of my daughter and hope she never has to deal with a woman like that again. And yeah, Ripe Stars, it seems like these entitled people just get worse and worse, and I guess already long ago they stopped respecting people with disabilities, and I'm really curious where that comes from. I guess in some cases it is just mental illness or something. Either way, let's continue with the stories. So the next one is a neighbor from hell's story posted by user Azrael Knox on r/Ripe Stories. There is a lot to go over with this, so I'm just gonna cut and paste the log of events I recorded while I was dealing with this guy. From roughly the 5th to 21st of February 2022, neighbor would be either in his doorway hiding around the corner of the stairwell or be outside around the time I would normally leave for work. During these times, he would mumble, mutter threats or outwardly offer veiled ones. See February 13th. This stopped after he constructed his terracotta pot shelves. Think of planks of wood supported by terracotta pots that are designed to be knocked down like a house of cards, and he realized I could fold my bike to get around them. That is when he started trying to bring other people into it. February 5th, psycho neighbor was outside with an axe acting irrationally and erratically while hacking away at any and all vegetation in reach and climbing to get to the branches outside of his reach. The police were called. February 7th, came home to find psycho neighbor, neighbor 1 and neighbor 3 standing in odd places around the driveway and stairwell. Neighbor 1 was opposite, neighbor 3 was adjacent to the entry. Psycho neighbor was down the hill and about 15 to 20 meters away. When I got off of my bike, they all started to converge toward me until they realized I was using my Bluetooth headset and all piled into neighbor 3's unit. I thought this was weird but decided to make a note of it and let it go. February 11th, trail camera facing the mailboxes is stolen at around 9 AM. I am woken up by the bike alarm I super glued to it and can hear psycho neighbor outside talking to someone as this is happening. I figure it's not worth the argument, so I just let it go. Later that night, I start pressing keys on the remote to the alarm and start hearing thumping and crashing coming from downstairs. February 12th, I call all of the pawn shops in the surrounding area at roughly 11 AM and tell them that if they happen upon a camera that is covered in super glue and looks like mine, not to take it because it is hot. Somewhere between 3 and 5 PM, I hear psycho neighbor outside the window talking to someone before he starts shouting. "He did what? Already? That dude is effing fast." February 13th, psycho neighbor stops me on my way out to work. He is building a bird feeder and says something about doing it so Rose, my cat, is in the window more often. I note this as something extremely odd to say and make a note of it. He then goes on to try and get a reaction out of me by mentioning the camera being missing, and I just shrug and tell him that I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. He tries to tell me that his mate is the one that probably took it and then proceeds to give me a description of what he looks like, what he drives and where he lives. This is the same person that was here shouting with someone else at 6:45 AM on the 27th. I ignore this as it is a transparent attempt at starting drama with someone I don't know. February 14th, leaving the unit to go to work, psycho neighbors in the garden again and he says something about planting a vegetable garden so he can make me and Stefan, I don't know who that is, a meal, and then he mutters something about putting a little bit of poison in it. Just loud enough for me to hear it. February 16th, psycho neighbor constructs a set of shelves propped up by terracotta pots in the stairwell, with about 10 centimeters of space between those and the stairs. I now got a suspicion that it's there as an attempt to start drama and I decide to ignore it. Images have been removed because this is currently an open case and I don't want to upset the magistrate. February 19th, psycho neighbor stops me on the way in at roughly 12 PM and asks me 3 to 6 times in 2 minutes if the pots are in my way. I tell him they are not because I can fold the bike. I also tell him that I'm on the phone and cannot talk and then go into my unit and close the door. February 22nd, as I'm going to get my mail, 3 of my neighbors call me over to tell me that I need to be careful because psycho neighbor is trying to stir up drama and rumors around me around the complex. I take note of this and decide to sit on it until something happens. February 25th, as I am coming out of my unit at around 9 PM with my bike, psycho neighbor sees me coming out and stops me again. He asks me again if the pots are in my way and I tell him again that they are not because I can fold the bike up and show him that they are not a hindrance at all. He pauses for a moment and then says, "You've got it all figured out, don't you?" And he starts laughing. I make small talk with him while making it clear that I'm not interested in talking and he starts pestering me for alcohol and food. I tell him that I've got none and that I'm gonna be moving out soon due to a change in my circumstances. He becomes very interested in where I'm going and when, and in particular why I am going. I thought this was odd, so I made a mental note to remember the conversation. I basically told him that a relative was getting on in age and had recently lost his wife and could use a hand around the house. He asked me again if the pots were in the way and I told him that no, they are not, but they will be when I'm moving my stuff out. He then repeats his previous questions about when and where I am going. I continue to tell him that I don't know yet and it's still being organized. He then reverts back to trying to ask me for alcohol and food, which I decline repeatedly. February 27th, 4:59 AM, some guy I've never seen before is looking for me. Psycho neighbor can be heard in the recording from the doorbell camera saying something. It is 5 AM, so I figure I'll deal with this later after he leaves. February 27th, 6:45 AM. The guy comes back with 2 others, Crazy Phone Guy and Player 3, and seems to be shouting at Psycho neighbor because he won't open his door. I can hear a lot of shouting, banging, and what sounds like Psycho neighbor's security door being bashed. I'm not sure if they are after Psycho neighbor or me, so I call emergency back and inform them that he is back with others. They tell me to keep the door locked and sit tight. February 27th, 7:30 until 7:45 AM. I hear what sounds like a pistol clip being loaded, so I look out the window and it looks like CGP has a pistol. I call emergency services a 3rd time and tell them that I think they have a pistol, but it looks weird. They tell me to sit tight again. February 27th, 8:40 AM, CPG is just about to pull out when the police arrive and he is blocked in. The police do their thing while I am in my unit trying to stay calm and not draw attention to myself. February 27th, 9:10 AM until 9:15 AM, the police are done at a round and don't ask for a statement or anything like that they leave. CPG has been sighted with something and is not happy about it. He is pacing again and then comes up to neighbor 1's unit. There is shouting and psycho neighbor can be heard saying, "Yeah, I know, I told you to be quiet." February 27th, 9:30 to 1:30 p.m, there has been a lot of arguing. Psycho neighbor has been pacing around outside, seemingly waiting for me to come out. The 5 a.m. guy came back at around 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Don't know if he is still here. This report is almost finished and will be converted to PDF and sent to a few people in case there is an attempt to stop me from leaving. Real estate company will also be getting a copy for their records. Addendum, 27th February I was informed after I finished typing this document that 5 a.m. guy is innocent neighbor from unit 16. And that someone vandalized his unit the night prior with a rock through the window and a damaged front door. And then February 28th, 5 until 5:15 a.m, I get woken up by someone banging on a saucepan with a wooden spoon and shouting. 5:15 to 6:30 a.m, I get woken up again by what sounds like breaking glass. I get woken up again by someone that sounds like innocent neighbor saying, bro, he left me a note, and then it goes quiet for a few minutes and psycho neighbor and innocent neighbor are shouting at one another. I left a note for innocent neighbor after he tried to contact me twice. Innocent neighbor never contacted me and has not been a problem. 9:45 a.m, I get woken up by CPG shouting from downstairs in his ute, "I'm not going back to effing prison for some a-hole that's effing moving out anyway." A few minutes goes by and CPG has random outbursts. One that stood out was, "Why do you always do this? You always start trouble with people and drag me into it. Come back to this later." I start recording video at this point to prove that he has come back and that psycho neighbor has his head shoved in his driver's side window. He goes to leave and psycho neighbor stops him to try to talk to him some more. He leaves and I continue to pack my things for the move and clean/tidy the apartment. 11:14 a.m, I go to work and happen to be leaving at the same time as neighbor 2 and neighbor 1, and I am met with neighbor 2 wearing a child's green goblin mask that barely covers half of his face. I ask about the guy now identified as innocent neighbor and they overhype him as some drug-crazed madman that's going to beat the crap out of me and stab me for fun. I mention that I just want to know what he wanted to talk to me about and I'm emphatically told not to talk to him at all, even if he comes to me. At this point, psycho neighbor pops his head up through the stairwell to see what we are talking about. He offers another false apology about the noise and an assurance that he will handle it. I try to ask about the "I'm not gonna go to effing prison for that guy that's moving out" from CPG and he brushes me off. All in all, I am gaslit for about 13 minutes. 10:20 p.m, I get Homer at around this time and accidentally knock one of psycho neighbor's pots over with my backpack because neighbor 3's screen door is open. This is where I mutter for F's sake in the audio recording I took and right the pot, then put the soil back into the pot and continue upstairs. Within a minute, psycho neighbor is downstairs with CPG and they are complaining about how much of a problem I am. The audio is not the best because psycho neighbor mumbles, but CPG can be heard saying how much he wants to cave my skull in because he was caught with an imitation firearm the day prior. March 1st, 12:10 a.m, updating the timeline is complete. A copy of this current format will be printed off at office supply store tomorrow morning on the way to the police station and offered when asking for some intervention order paperwork. 7:32 a.m, co-worker calls me to ask if I have the keys to the floor buffer. I do and leave to go and return them. 7:42 a.m, psycho neighbor is in the stairwell again and tries to talk to me about the pots. I tell him I'm too busy and don't care. 8:07 a.m, I return home from work and see psycho neighbor and CPG in CPG's ute. I'm tired of psycho neighbor's antics and decide to confront him. First thing I do is look at CPG and say to him, "I don't have any issues with you, yeah?" He nods and agrees with me. I turn my attention to psycho neighbor. "You I have issues with." We bicker as he tries to intimidate me and I draw him back to the doorbell. I close the door and CPG is yelling at psycho neighbor to leave it and get in the car. Psycho neighbor yells a bunch of threats and expletives from the stairwell as he is leaving. 8:54 a.m, psycho neighbor is back and is pressed up against the doorbell threatening me with prison for recording him without his permission. Psycho neighbor backs away into the stairwell to presumably prevent the camera from activating, which doesn't work, and continues to shout expletives and threats. I call emergency again and tell them that he is being threatening and give a basic rundown of the morning's events. I put on some music so I cannot hear him trying to intimidate me. You get the gist. 9:13 a.m. I get a call from next town over PD stating that they are on their way and will be here soon. I reiterate the situation and go back to cleaning and packing. 10:29 a.m. I miss a call from next town over PD stating that they tried both Psycho Neighbors and my doors but received no response and then left. I check the doorbell footage and see nothing. I presume that due to my heightened stress that I misspoke and they got the wrong details. I call next town over PD directly and explain the situation and that while it's quiet I'm gonna go to the local courthouse in person. 10:30 a.m. to 12:54 p.m. Doorbell captures Psycho Neighbor talking with other neighbors. This is irrelevant to me, so I haven't looked at it, but the videos are backed up. 12:54 p.m. I eventually return to the complex after taking care of a few errands. I start recording on my phone just in case Psycho Neighbor starts another instigation and brings my bins in, which catches his attention. As I am heading up the stairs I hear, "You'd better know your rights, dude." I respond with, "I'm gonna make this very simple for you. Leave me alone. I've got enough stuff to deal with without you." He doesn't appreciate this and calls me a crap poop dog maggot idiot and threatens to crack me over the head and hang me if I don't delete all of that evidence. I respond with, "I cannot delete what I don't have." He responds with, "Huh?" I respond with, "I have sent it to at least 5 other people. I cannot delete their copies." This sets him off. Psycho Neighbor tries to follow me upstairs until I close and lock the door to more yelling and threats. Just a quick side note, making sure you've got more than one copy of recordings and written records, because if you're attacked and attempted to be silenced, they still go down. There is more to this. I will summarize it because it's been a few months and I'm late for work. I had to leave the city for about 10 days because I found out he was reporting anyone with drugs or weapons to the police and telling them that I was ratting them out. That resulted in me getting followed around for about 3 months, and I had people following too, from and at work during that time, trying to get a beat on me. It came to a head just before the court date where I had 5 people in the same day following and trying to film me from a distance while I was working. I can assure you that they didn't appreciate it when I vanished and reappeared next to them as they were texting their friends. One of them was leaning over the railing of a higher floor in the shopping center trying to film me on the ground floor and started scanning ground floor for me again, so I walked up next to them with my arms crossed and mimicked their behavior. When they looked up and saw me standing next to them, they pooped bricks and ran. As for the neighbor, he was harassing me the whole time I was moving out and even tried to turn my friends against me as they were helping me get my things out ASAP. He was feeding them lies about the things he was doing to me and trying to tell them that I was doing it to him, despite the fact that he was shouting death threats at all of us not even 15 minutes prior to him pulling them inside. In the end, I got my day in court. He refused to even show up. The magistrate read through everything above and more, as well as asked me some clarifying questions, and I've got a 2-year protection order on the neighbor. He cannot contact me, come anywhere near me, talk about me online, have any photos of me, or have anyone else do any of the above on his behalf, or he's gonna get a free ride in a blue and white car and spend some time in a very small room. And yeah, ripe stars, I am very glad that things worked out for OP in the end, but I gotta say, I would still be a little bit afraid of this crazy neighbor because he seems completely out of his mind. Anyway, we have reached the end of the video, but if you cannot get enough of my videos, then I would suggest you click the join button next to the subscribe button on YouTube to get access to more exclusive ripe videos. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.